Hello, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, The English Globe. I hope you all are doing great and feeling excited to learn something new today. My name is Adam, and I'm so happy that you're here with us again for another special English learning episode. Today, we're going to talk about a very important topic that many students around the world think about, and that is why you're not improving in English and how to fix it. If you are studying English every day, but you feel like you are not getting better, don't worry, you are not alone. Many people feel the same way, and today we will help you understand why that happens and what you can do to change it. I'm not alone today. My wonderful co-host, Julia, is here with me. Hello, Julia.
Hi, Adam, and hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with all of you today. This is a very important topic because we know that many English learners feel stuck. Maybe you have been watching English videos, reading grammar books, or listening to podcasts for a long time, but still you feel like your English is not getting better. You want to speak more fluently, understand more quickly, and feel confident, but it's just not happening. So today we are going to talk about all the small and big reasons why your English may not be improving. And more importantly, we will show you simple, clear, and easy ways to fix these problems.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes we think we are learning, but we are not learning in the right way. Or maybe we are doing too much of one thing and not enough of another. For example, maybe you are reading English every day, but you are not speaking it at all. Or maybe you are watching English movies, but you don't really understand them, and you don't stop to learn new words. These small things can make a big difference. And the good news is, when you understand the problem, you can fix it. That's what this episode is all about.
That's right, Adam. In this podcast episode, we will first talk about the most common problems English learners face. Then, we will give you simple and clear solutions that you can start using today. Also, we will share real-life stories of students who had problems but improved by changing their habits. And we will even give you a practice section where you can repeat some words and phrases with us. So, by the end of this episode, you will feel more motivated, more confident, and more ready to keep going on your English journey.
So if you ever asked yourself questions like, why am I not fluent yet? Or, why can't I speak English well even after studying for a long time? Then this episode is just for you. Don't worry, you are not bad at English. You just need the right guidance and the right practice, and we're here to give you that.
Before we start, I want to remind you that learning a new language is not easy, and it takes time. It's normal to feel stuck sometimes, but the most important thing is to keep going, step by step. You are already doing a great job by listening to this podcast and taking time to learn, so be proud of yourself and stay positive.
Yes. And one more thing, please grab a notebook if you can, because we'll be sharing tips, vocabulary, and exercises you might want to write down. Taking notes will help you remember more, and it's a great way to track your progress. All right, let's begin.
Let's go. First, let's talk about the common reasons why your English may not be improving, even if you're studying every day.
All right, friends. Now let's talk about something very important. Many English learners feel like they are doing everything right, but they are not seeing results. They are studying hard, listening to English podcasts, watching videos on YouTube, reading English books, and maybe even using English learning apps on their phone. But still, they don't feel more confident, they don't feel fluent, and sometimes they even feel frustrated or tired. If this sounds like you, don't worry. It's completely normal. In this part of the podcast, we will explain the most common reasons why people do not improve in English, even when they are trying very hard. So, listen carefully and see if you recognize any of these problems in your own learning.
The first big reason why many people don't improve in English is because they are not consistent. That means they don't study or practice every day, or they only do it once in a while. For example, maybe you study English for 2 hours on Monday, but then you don't do anything for the next 4 or 5 days. Or maybe you study for a week, but then you stop for a month. Learning a language is like exercising your brain. It needs regular training. Just like you can't get strong muscles by going to the gym one time, you can't become fluent in English by practicing once in a while. Even 15 or 20 minutes every day is better than 2 hours once a week. So being consistent is one of the most important keys to success.
Yes, Julia. And the second big reason is fear. Fear of making mistakes. This is something that affects so many students. They are afraid to speak because they think, what if I say something wrong? Or what if someone laughs at my English? Or what if I don't understand the other person? This fear stops them from practicing. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is not a bad thing. In fact, it's one of the best ways to learn. Every mistake is an opportunity to grow and understand English better. Remember, even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. So don't let fear stop you. Speak, try, and learn from your errors. That is how real learning happens.
Another reason why many learners do not improve is because they focus too much on passive learning. Passive learning means you are just watching videos, listening to music, or reading books without doing anything active. For example, you might watch English movies, but you don't speak, you don't write new words down, and you don't repeat what you hear. While listening and watching are good, they are not enough by themselves. You also need to practice speaking, writing, and thinking in English. Active learning means you do something with the language. You use it, you speak it, you write it, and you try to create your own sentences. So, make sure you mix passive and active learning every day.
That's a great point, Julia. The next reason is that some learners don't have clear goals. They just say, I want to learn English. But they don't really know what they want to learn, why they want to learn it, or how they will reach their goal. Without a clear goal, it's hard to stay motivated, and it's easy to get lost or give up. For example, instead of saying, I want to speak English, you can say, I want to speak English confidently with my colleagues in 3 months, or I want to pass the IELTS test next year. A clear goal helps you focus, choose the right materials, and measure your progress. So take some time to ask yourself, what is my goal? Why do I want to learn English? And how can I get there step by step?
That's so true. And here's another common problem, not practicing speaking enough. Many learners spend hours reading grammar books and watching vocabulary lessons, but they never open their mouth to speak. Speaking is like a muscle. You need to use it often or it becomes weak. You don't need a native speaker to practice speaking. You can talk to yourself in English when you are alone. You can describe what you are doing, what you are feeling, or what you see around you. You can also record your voice and listen to your pronunciation. Just 5 or 10 minutes of speaking every day will make a big difference over time.
I love that advice, Julia. And now let's talk about another big mistake. Many learners keep learning new things, but they don't review what they already learned. For example, you learn 20 new words this week, and next week you learn 30 more, but you never go back and review the words from last week. Over time, you forget everything. Learning is not just about putting new information into your brain, it's also about keeping it there. That's why review is so important. You can use flashcards, apps like Anki or Quizlet, or simply go back to your notebook and revise your old vocabulary. Review helps you move information from short-term memory to long-term memory.
Another reason people don't improve is because they compare themselves to others. Maybe you see someone speaking English fluently on social media, and you feel sad because you are not at that level. But remember, everyone learns at their own speed. Maybe that person has been learning for 10 years, and you have only started recently. Or maybe they study English 4 hours a day, and you only have 30 minutes. So don't compare yourself to others. Compare yourself to your past self. Ask, do I understand more than last month? Can I say more words than last year? If the answer is yes, then you are improving. And that's what really matters.
That's very true. And the last reason we want to talk about in this section is not using real-life English. Some learners only focus on textbooks and grammar rules, but they don't use English in real situations. Learning English only from books is like learning how to swim by reading about swimming. It's helpful, but not enough. You need to experience English in real life. That means listening to real conversations, talking to people online, ordering food in English, asking for help at a store, or even writing emails and messages in English. The more you use English in your real life, the faster you will improve.
So let's do a quick review of the reasons we talked about. Number 1, you are not consistent. Number 2, you are afraid of making mistakes. Number 3, you are only doing passive learning. Number 4, you don't have clear goals. Number 5, you are not speaking enough. Number 6, you don't review your vocabulary and grammar. Number 7, you compare yourself to others. And number 8, you are not using real-life English.
Exactly. If you are doing any of these things, don't feel bad. The good news is, now you know the problem. And when you know the problem, you can fix it. That's what we'll talk about next. We will give you simple, easy-to-follow tips to help you fix these problems and start improving your English again. So stay with us. This next part will be full of practical advice.
Yes. And remember, learning English is a journey. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to feel slow sometimes. The most important thing is to keep going and keep enjoying the process. We're here to support you, step by step.
All right. Now that we've talked about the most common reasons why many English learners don't see improvement, let's move to something very helpful and motivational. Real-life stories and examples of English learners just like you. These are true stories about people who were struggling, just like many of you might be today, but they made small changes in their habits, and over time, they started to improve. We want you to hear these stories so you know that you are not alone, and that success is possible for everyone, even if you're just a beginner.
Yes, Adam. Sometimes when we're learning a language, we feel like we are the only one having problems. But in reality, thousands of people feel just like you. So hearing their stories can give you hope, ideas, and motivation to keep going. The first story I want to share is about a young woman named Amina. She lives in Morocco, and she started learning English 2 years ago because she wanted to work in the tourism industry. At first, she studied from a grammar book for many hours, but she never practiced speaking. After 6 months, she was frustrated. She knew many grammar rules, but she couldn't speak even simple sentences.
Yes, I remember Amina's story. She was very shy and scared of making mistakes. But then, she joined a small online English group. It wasn't a professional class, just 3 or 4 friends who met twice a week on Zoom to talk about simple topics like daily routines, hobbies, or weekend plans. In the beginning, Amina could only say a few words, but little by little, her confidence grew. She stopped worrying about mistakes and just focused on expressing herself. After 3 more months, she was speaking English clearly and confidently. Now, she gives tours to international visitors in English.
That's amazing. And the important lesson here is that Amina didn't buy expensive courses or move to an English-speaking country. She simply started speaking regularly and used English in real-life situations. That made all the difference. So even if you don't have a teacher or a native speaker around, you can still practice speaking, just like Amina did.
Now I'd like to share another story. This one is about a man named Felipe from Brazil. Felipe was very excited about learning English, and he watched many English YouTube videos every day. He loved watching travel vlogs and English movies, but after 1 year, he felt disappointed. He could understand some things, but he couldn't remember the vocabulary or speak confidently. The problem was, he was only watching. He was not reviewing the new words, and he was not using what he learned.
Yes, and then he started doing something very simple but powerful. He began keeping a daily English journal. Every day he wrote 3 or 4 sentences in English about his life, like what he ate, where he went, or how he felt. He also chose 5 new English words every day from the videos he watched and wrote them in his notebook. Then he tried to use those words in his journal. Slowly, he started remembering more words, and writing became easier. After 3 months, he was writing full paragraphs. And now he can have real conversations with people in English.
Exactly. Felipe's story teaches us that active learning is important. Watching and listening are great, but using the language, through writing or speaking, is what helps you improve. So if you're just watching videos and hoping your English will get better, think about Felipe and try something more active today.
Here's another short story about a student named Lynn from Vietnam. She was studying for the IELTS test and felt very stuck. She knew the grammar rules, but during the speaking test, she would forget everything and freeze. Her problem was not about knowledge, it was about confidence. She thought her English was not good enough. But then, she made a list of positive words and phrases like, "I can do this," "It's okay to make mistakes," and "Every day I'm improving." She repeated these to herself before each practice session. Slowly, she changed her mindset. She still made mistakes, but now she smiled and kept talking. In the end, she passed the IELTS with a great score.
That's such a powerful example, Julia. Sometimes, the biggest thing we need to fix is our own thinking. If we believe we can't do it, we give up too soon. But if we believe we can improve, we keep going, even when it's difficult. So remember, your mindset matters. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to keep going.
Yes. And finally, let's talk about Omar from Egypt. Omar was very busy with work and didn't have much time to study English. He worked all day and had a family to take care of. But instead of giving up, he made small changes in his daily routine. He listened to English podcasts on the bus, used English words when talking to himself, and wrote short notes in English on his phone. Even though he only studied for 15 or 20 minutes a day, after a few months, he could understand English news and hold short conversations. His story shows that even small daily efforts can lead to big results.
That's so inspiring. And I hope everyone listening understands this important message. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need to study for 5 hours every day. You just need to stay consistent, be positive, and use English as much as you can in your real life.
Yes. So what can we learn from these stories? First, you don't need to be perfect. You just need to start. Second, use English in real life, even in small ways. Third, speak without fear and don't worry about mistakes. Fourth, write and review often. Keep your vocabulary strong. And fifth, stay motivated by setting small, clear goals.
Beautifully said, Julia. We hope these stories give you the motivation and belief that yes, you can improve your English and you will, step by step. Coming up next, we'll share some powerful, simple solutions that you can start using today to fix the problems we talked about earlier. These are practical tips that work, and we're going to explain each one clearly.
So, get ready, dear listeners. Grab your notebook and pen and stay with us. We're going to guide you through easy, everyday actions that will make your English better, stronger, and more natural. See you in the next part of the podcast.
Welcome back, everyone. In the last section, we talked about some inspiring real-life stories of people who were struggling with English, but found ways to grow, step by step. We hope you're feeling more confident and hopeful now. In this part of the podcast, we're going to talk about solutions. Yes, simple, practical, easy-to-follow steps that you can start today. If you've ever asked yourself, why am I not improving? This is the part you've been waiting for.
That's right. Let's start with something really important: daily consistency. Many learners make the mistake of studying a lot on one day and then doing nothing for a week. But learning a language is like growing a plant. If you water it every day, even just a little, it grows. If you forget it for too long, it dries out. So even if you only have 10 minutes, use those 10 minutes every single day. Listen to a podcast, read a paragraph, Learn 5 new words. Do something every day. That is one of the strongest habits you can build.
Exactly, Julia. And if you want to make that daily habit stronger, here's a simple idea. Create a study routine that connects with your life. For example, if you take the bus to school or work, listen to an English podcast like this one. If you walk in the morning, use that time to repeat some phrases out loud. If you cook dinner, turn on an English song or YouTube video. Don't wait for a perfect moment. Connect English to your real life, and you will find more time to practice than you think.
Great advice. Now, here's another tip that many learners forget. Don't just study English, try to live in English. This means changing small things in your daily environment to include English. For example, change your phone language to English. Follow English pages on social media. Put sticky notes around your room with vocabulary words. Watch simple English TV shows with subtitles. If you surround yourself with English, your brain gets used to it, and it becomes more natural for you to think in English.
Yes, that's called immersion. And it really helps your brain stay active with the language. Now let's talk about another powerful strategy, shadowing. This is a technique where you listen to a sentence in English, and then you repeat it immediately, trying to copy the speaker's voice, rhythm, and pronunciation. It's like being a mirror. Shadowing helps improve your speaking, listening, and accent all at the same time. You can do it with podcasts, YouTube videos, or English movies. Just play, pause, and repeat.
That's one of my favorite techniques, and it's so easy to do. You don't need a teacher, just a phone and your voice. Another important thing to remember is write every day. You don't have to write long essays. Just start with 3 sentences. What did I do today? What did I learn today? What do I want to say in English? This helps your brain organize your thoughts in English. And if you don't know how to say something, look it up. That's how you learn. Writing is like building a strong house, brick by brick.
Yes, and writing also helps you remember vocabulary better. Speaking of vocabulary, let's give a tip about how to remember new words. Many learners try to memorize big word lists, but that's hard to remember. Instead, use a method called learn it, use it. Every time you learn a new word, try to use it in a sentence right away. Then say the sentence 3 times, then use it again tomorrow. If you do this, the word will stay in your memory much longer.
And here's a little vocabulary trick, Adam. Try learning word families. For example, if you learn the word happy, also learn happiness, unhappy, and happily. 1 word becomes 4 words. It makes your English stronger and your brain connects them together. Learning in groups is easier and more fun than learning 1 word at a time.
That's such a smart method. Now let's talk about one of the biggest problems people face: fear of making mistakes. This is very common. Many learners don't speak because they are afraid someone will laugh or correct them. But the truth is, mistakes are not your enemy. They are your teachers. If you're not making mistakes, you're not learning. So change your mindset. Instead of saying, "I'm bad at English," say, "I'm learning and I'm getting better." That small change can give you more confidence.
Yes, and confidence grows when you practice speaking regularly. Even if you don't have a partner, you can speak to yourself in English. Describe what you're doing. "Now I'm cooking rice," or "I'm going to the shop." You can also ask yourself questions and answer them out loud. It feels silly at first, but it really helps your brain to start thinking in English.
That's a really fun exercise. Also, if you want speaking practice, try using language exchange apps or join online English groups. Talk with other learners. Don't wait for a native speaker. Other learners can help you too. Remember, the goal is not to be perfect, but to be clear and confident.
And here's one final suggestion before we move to the next section. Please remember to track your progress. Keep a notebook. Write the date. Write what you learned today. Write what you need to improve. Every week, look back and see how far you've come. When you feel sad or stuck, open your notebook and see your progress. It will remind you that you're growing even when it feels slow.
Beautiful, Julia. So, to review these practical solutions, study a little every day, be consistent, connect English with your real life, surround yourself with English, immerse, use the shadowing technique, write short sentences every day, learn words and use them immediately, learn vocabulary in families or groups, speak without fear, mistakes are okay, talk to yourself in English every day, track your progress weekly.
Yes, these small actions can bring big results. You don't need to do everything at once. Just choose 1 or 2 habits and start today. Then slowly add more. We believe in you, and we are here to help you on your journey to speak English fluently and with confidence.
Coming up next in our final part, we'll give you some encouragement, answer a few common questions from English learners, and help you build a strong mindset to keep going when things get hard. So stay with us and let's finish strong. A lot of English learners feel stuck or disappointed because they believe things that are not true about learning a new language, and these false beliefs or myths make them feel like they are not smart enough or talented enough to improve. But the truth is that these myths are just bad ideas that have been repeated so many times that people start to believe them. One of the most common myths is the idea that you need to speak perfect English before you start speaking with other people, and this idea is not only wrong, but it can also be very dangerous because it stops you from practicing your speaking skills, which is one of the most important parts of becoming fluent in English.
That's exactly right, Adam. And we want our listeners to understand that perfection is not the goal when you're learning to speak English. What really matters is being able to share your message clearly so that other people can understand you. You don't need to use perfect grammar or long, difficult words or sound exactly like a native speaker, because real communication is about connection, not perfection. If you say, "I go to store yesterday," people will understand that you're talking about going to the store, and that's what really matters. You can always improve your grammar over time, but if you wait until your English is perfect before you start speaking, you might wait forever and miss many great opportunities to practice and learn.
Another myth that stops a lot of people is the idea that they are too old to learn English, and this is something we hear from many learners who feel embarrassed because they think only children or teenagers can learn a new language well. But this idea is just not true, because the human brain can learn new things at any age, and in fact, adults often learn faster in some ways because they are more motivated, more focused, and they already understand how learning works. Children may pick up pronunciation quickly, but adults can understand grammar rules better, remember new words more efficiently, and use logic to connect ideas. And all of these things are powerful tools when learning a language like English.
And I really want to say this clearly to our listeners. Your age is not the problem. Your belief about your age is the problem. If you believe you're too old, you will stop trying. And if you stop trying, of course you won't improve. But if you believe that now is the perfect time to start, and you take small steps every day, you will absolutely make progress, no matter if you're 20, 40, or 60 years old. There are thousands of adult learners around the world who have reached fluency by practicing a little every day, making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and continuing to move forward with a positive attitude.
Here's another popular myth that slows people down. The idea that you need to go to an English-speaking country in order to become fluent. While it's true that living in an English-speaking country can give you more chances to practice the language every day, it's not necessary for success, because thanks to the internet, you can now create an English environment right in your own home. You can listen to English podcasts, watch videos, read articles, join online speaking clubs, and even have conversations with people from around the world, all without leaving your country. What really matters is how much you expose yourself to the language and how active you are in using it every day, not where you live.
Yes, and I think that's such an important point, because many learners wait for the perfect conditions before they start learning seriously. They think they need to travel, or take an expensive course, or buy a lot of books, But the truth is that improvement comes from using what you already have and building good habits with simple tools. Even if you only have a phone and a notebook, you can learn a lot by listening, reading, writing, and speaking regularly. What's more important than money or location is your consistency, your attitude, and your willingness to keep going even when it feels difficult.
Let's also talk about another dangerous myth. The idea that if you make mistakes, it means you're not good at English. This belief causes a lot of fear, especially when people try to speak and someone laughs or corrects them. But we want everyone listening to understand that mistakes are a natural and necessary part of learning, not a sign of failure. In fact, every time you make a mistake, you have a chance to learn something new and become better. Think of children learning their first language. They make thousands of mistakes, but no one tells them to stop. They keep going, they keep talking, and that's how they improve.
Yes, and I always tell my students to change the way they see mistakes. Instead of thinking, I'm terrible at English because I made a mistake, try to think, I just learned something new because of that mistake. This small change in how you think can give you more confidence and help you move forward without fear. And remember, even native speakers make mistakes sometimes, so don't be afraid. Every time you try, every time you speak, every time you learn from an error, you are growing and improving.
There's one more myth we should mention today, and that's the idea that studying English for many hours at once is better than studying for a short time every day. While it might feel good to study for a long time once a week, what really helps your brain remember and use the language is daily contact. It's better to study for 20 or 30 minutes every day than to study for 3 hours once a week, because daily repetition builds strong memory and helps you stay connected to the language. Language learning is like exercise. If you only go to the gym once a week, it's not as effective as working out a little every day.
That's so true, and many students feel frustrated because they spend hours one day studying vocabulary, and then they forget everything after a few days. But if they review just 5 or 10 words each day and use those words in writing or speaking, they will remember them much better. The key is not how much time you study, but how often you use English in small, active ways. The brain learns best through repetition and real practice, not just memorizing from a book.
So let's quickly repeat these common myths. You don't need perfect English to speak. Communication is the goal. You are never too old to learn English. Your mindset is more important than your age. You don't have to live in an English-speaking country. You can create an English environment anywhere. Making mistakes is not bad. It's part of the learning process. Studying every day for a short time is better than studying for many hours once in a while.
If you've believed any of these myths before, don't worry. You're not alone. The most important thing is that now you know the truth, and you can start building better learning habits. Let go of fear, let go of perfection, and let go of pressure. Learn with joy, learn with curiosity, and remember, English is not just a subject in school. It's a tool that opens doors, connects people, and helps you express yourself to the world.
Many English learners spend months or even years studying the language, but they still feel like they are not moving forward. And often, the real reason for this is not because they are lazy or because English is too difficult. It's because they have developed certain habits that seem small or harmless, but these habits actually slow down their progress without them even realizing it. If you do the same thing every day, but that thing isn't helping you improve, you might feel like you are stuck in one place, like you're running but not going anywhere, and that feeling can be very frustrating.
That's a great point, Adam, and it's something many learners experience without fully understanding what's going wrong. One of the most common bad habits is only reading and never speaking, and I think a lot of learners fall into this trap because reading feels safer and easier. When you read a book or article, you can take your time, there's no pressure, and you feel like you're learning something. But if you never speak, your mouth never practices forming English words, your ears don't get used to the sound of your own English voice, and your brain doesn't build strong speaking connections. Reading is good, but speaking is a skill that needs practice like any other.
Exactly. Another bad habit is always translating in your head from your native language to English. In the beginning, it's normal to translate, but if you continue to do it for too long, it can slow you down a lot. When you translate in your head before speaking, it takes time, it makes you nervous, and it breaks your fluency. Instead of trying to build English sentences by translating word by word, try to learn common phrases or expressions as whole blocks, so your brain starts to think in English. For example, instead of translating "How are you?" word by word from your own language, just remember it as one natural piece of language that you can use automatically without thinking.
Yes, and that brings us to another important bad habit: memorizing too many random vocabulary words without using them. Some learners think that the more words they know, the better their English will be, so they make long lists of words and try to memorize them. But they don't actually use those words in writing or speaking. The problem with this method is that words you only see once or twice and never use will disappear from your memory very quickly. The brain remembers better when you use a word in a real sentence, especially if the sentence is connected to your life. So instead of learning 50 new words in a day, try to learn 5 useful words and use them in your own sentences or conversations.
That's such a smart tip, and it's something I wish every English learner knew. Use it or lose it. If you don't use the word, your brain forgets it. Let's talk about another bad habit, which is watching or listening to English passively without paying attention. Some learners say, "I watch movies in English every day," or "I listen to podcasts all the time," but when you ask them what the movie was about or what they learned, they can't remember. That's because they are not actively listening. They're just hearing sounds while doing other things. Passive listening is okay sometimes, but active listening is much more powerful. It means you listen carefully, pause when you don't understand, repeat the sentence out loud, and write down useful words and expressions. That's how you turn entertainment into learning.
Right, and I think another problem is when learners always choose material that is too difficult for their current level. They want to learn fast, so they watch advanced movies or read difficult books, but they don't understand much, and that can make them feel frustrated or bored. It's better to choose material that matches your level, even if it feels too easy, because when you understand most of what you hear or read, you feel more confident, and that confidence helps you stay motivated. Over time, your level will go up, and you'll be able to handle more difficult content. Learning is a journey, and it's okay to go step by step.
Another bad habit I see is skipping the basics because people think they are boring or too easy. Some learners want to jump straight into advanced grammar or difficult vocabulary because they want to sound smart, but they never take the time to master the simple and important parts of the language. Things like verb tenses, prepositions, or common sentence structures might seem small, but they are the foundation of clear and correct English. If you don't build a strong base, your English will be shaky, just like a house without a solid foundation. So even if you've studied for years, it's okay to go back and review the basics. They will help you become stronger and more confident.
That's very true. And finally, I think one of the most dangerous habits is comparing yourself to other people. When you watch someone speak English fluently on YouTube or Instagram, you might feel like you are not good enough. And that negative feeling can stop you from practicing or believing in yourself. But remember, everyone has a different story. You don't know how many hours that person practiced, how many mistakes they made, or how long they have been learning. The only person you should compare yourself to is your past self. If you're a little better than you were last month or last year, then you're on the right track.
Exactly, Julia. And I want every listener to hear this message clearly. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to go slow. It's okay to feel confused. What's not okay is giving up. So, if you've noticed any of these bad habits in your learning routine, don't feel bad. Just recognize them, change them slowly, and keep moving forward. Improving your English is not about being perfect. It's about being consistent and curious.
So let's quickly review the habits that might be slowing you down. Only reading and never speaking. Always translating in your head. Memorizing vocabulary without using it. Passive listening without attention. Choosing content that is too hard. Ignoring the basics. Comparing yourself to others. Each one of these habits can be changed with time and patience, and when you replace them with smarter learning strategies, you will start to notice progress. Not just in your skills, but in your confidence and your motivation too.
One of the biggest reasons people don't see improvement in their English is not because they aren't trying hard enough or because they aren't smart. It's often because they're not practicing in a way that actually helps their brain absorb the language. And what I mean is that even if you're spending an hour every day doing English activities, if those activities don't push you to use English in real-life ways, your progress will be very slow and sometimes invisible.
Yes, Adam. And that's such an important point because a lot of students believe that just spending time with English, like reading books, watching videos, or listening to English songs, is enough to make them fluent. But the truth is, fluency doesn't come from just watching or reading. It comes from using the language to think, to speak, to solve problems, and to communicate ideas. And that kind of practice is very different from passive learning. For example, if you watch an English video but you don't write anything down, repeat anything aloud, or ask yourself questions about it, your brain doesn't really have to work, and so it forgets most of what it sees or hears.
Exactly. And I think one of the most common mistakes is that learners don't give their brain a reason to remember the language. If you learn a new word today but never use it in a sentence, never speak it, and never hear it again, your brain will think it's not important and throw it away. But if you use that new word in your speaking, in your writing, or even when thinking in your mind, you're telling your brain, hey, this is useful, please keep it. And that's how memory works. So the real improvement happens when your practice is active, connected to your real life, and repeated over time.
Yes, and I always tell my students that repetition with purpose is the secret to success. Repeating something again and again is helpful, but it's even more helpful when you do it with focus. For example, if you hear the sentence, "I'm looking forward to it," and you repeat it 5 times with your eyes closed, thinking about what it means and imagining yourself saying it to someone in real life, your brain will remember it much better than if you just said it quickly while thinking about something else. Real improvement doesn't come from how many words you repeat. It comes from how deeply you connect with the meaning and how clearly you imagine using it.
That's such a great point, Julia. And I think we also need to talk about balance in practice. A lot of learners spend too much time on one skill and ignore the others. For example, someone might only focus on grammar books for months, but they never practice listening, so when they hear a native speaker talk, they can't understand. Or someone listens to music every day but never writes anything, so their spelling and sentence structure are weak. English is like a tree with many branches. Reading, writing, speaking, listening, vocabulary, and grammar are all parts of it. And if you only water one branch, the tree won't grow strong. So practicing in a balanced way is very important.
Yes, and I also want to mention that many learners are afraid of making mistakes, so they wait too long to speak, and they think, I'll speak when my grammar is perfect, or I'll talk when I have a bigger vocabulary. But that day never comes, because you can't wait to speak. You have to speak in order to improve. Making mistakes is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you are learning something new. Children make thousands of mistakes when they learn their first language, but they still learn quickly because they are not afraid. So don't wait for perfect English. Just use the English you have, and little by little, it will get better.
I agree completely. Another problem is when learners don't review what they've already studied. They learn something once and then move on to the next thing, thinking that more new knowledge means more progress. But real progress happens when you review, repeat, and really master the things you already studied. It's like going to the gym. You don't do one exercise once and become strong. You repeat it many times over days and weeks until your muscles grow. Language works the same way. So if you're not reviewing your old notes, practicing old grammar, or repeating vocabulary that you learned last week, you're probably forgetting more than you realize.
That's right. And let's give our listeners a few simple ways to practice more effectively. First, when you learn a new word or sentence, write it down in a sentence that is about your own life, because your brain remembers personal examples more than random ones. Second, try to speak out loud every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes in front of the mirror or talking to yourself while cooking or walking. Third, use the shadowing technique. Listen to a native speaker say something and then repeat it immediately, trying to copy the rhythm and sound. And finally, record yourself speaking, and then listen and correct your own mistakes. That's one of the most powerful things you can do.
Those are such helpful ideas, Julia. So to everyone listening, if you feel like you're not improving, it doesn't mean you're doing everything wrong. It just means you might need to change how you practice. Focus on active learning, connect new words and grammar to your daily life, speak more often even if it's not perfect, review regularly, and practice all the skills, not just the easy ones. Improvement in English is not a mystery. It's the result of smart, consistent, and balanced practice every day. One of the most powerful ways to improve in any language, especially English, is through immersion, which means surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible every day, even if you're not living in an English-speaking country. But the reason many learners struggle is because they are not giving themselves enough daily exposure to real English, and their brain doesn't get the consistent practice it needs to grow, remember, and use the language naturally. They might study for 1 hour, but then spend the rest of the day in their native language, so their brain keeps switching back, and English never becomes a comfortable part of daily thinking or speaking.
Yes, Adam. And it's so important for students to understand that language learning is not only about the study time. It's about how much time you give your brain to live with the language. Think about how a child learns to speak. Before they say their first word, they hear thousands and thousands of words every single day from their parents, from their environment, from everything around them. That's what immersion is. The brain learns best when it is surrounded by the same patterns, the same sounds, and the same kind of sentences over and over again, until those patterns become familiar and automatic. You don't need to move to London or New York to experience immersion. You can create it at home with small, smart steps.
That's so true, Julia. And one of those steps is simply changing the language on your phone, your computer, and even your social media to English. It might seem small, but this creates mini English moments throughout your day, and those little moments build up. Every time you unlock your phone and see English words, your brain connects with them, and your vocabulary and comfort grow without needing to study a textbook. Also, if you follow English YouTube channels, Instagram pages, or podcasts, even for just 10 minutes a day, you're building what I like to call an English environment around you. And when your environment speaks English, your brain starts to do the same.
Exactly. And let's also talk about how to create daily English habits. For example, if you drink tea or coffee every morning, you can listen to a simple English podcast during that time. If you go for a walk in the evening, you can shadow a native speaker's audio. If you watch TV at night, try watching a short episode in English with English subtitles. The key is to add English to activities you're already doing, so it becomes part of your lifestyle. Immersion is not about changing your whole life. It's about changing the language your brain hears, sees, and thinks in, little by little, every day.
And that also means changing your thinking. One thing I always recommend to learners is to start thinking in English, even if you only know a few words. For example, when you wake up, instead of thinking, "I have to brush my teeth" in your native language, try saying it in English. When you're looking at your clothes, try to name the colors or describe them in English. When you're walking down the street, say in your mind, "I see a tree. The sky is blue. That man is wearing a hat." These thoughts don't need to be perfect or complex. They just need to be in English. And the more you do this, the more natural English becomes in your mind.
Yes, and that's a beautiful way to create mental immersion. It doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't need any special materials. You just use the English that's already in your head and keep growing it with daily thoughts and observations. And when you do that, you'll start to notice that you don't need to translate as much because English becomes your first response. That's when you start to feel fluency growing, not from memorizing more grammar, but from actually living with the language in your daily life.
Another big part of immersion is engaging with real people who speak English. Now, I know not everyone has English-speaking friends in their area, but there are so many free ways to connect online. You can join English learning groups on Facebook, join conversation clubs on apps like HelloTalk or Tandem, or even leave voice comments on YouTube videos. The more you use English to communicate with real people, the faster your speaking confidence grows. And when you use English to talk about your thoughts, your day, your feelings, that's when it stops being a school subject and starts becoming your own personal tool.
I love that idea, and I think it's important to say that immersion is not only about listening to native speakers, it's also about producing English actively. So it's not enough to just hear English. You also need to speak it, write it, and use it to create something. For example, you can write a daily journal in English, or record yourself talking about your day. Even if no one else hears it, your brain is working, and you're practicing expressing your thoughts. That's the kind of active practice that immersion brings. It's about using the language to live, not just to learn.
And that's the key idea here. If English is something you only do during class or study time, it will always feel like a foreign subject. But if you make it part of your morning routine, your hobbies, your music, your thoughts, and your free time, then it becomes part of your identity. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present in English more often. The more English you invite into your life, the more your brain will begin to feel that English is not something outside of you, but something inside of you. Another major reason why many learners don't improve in English is because they lose motivation, often very early in the process. Now, let's be honest. Learning a new language is not easy, and it takes time. It's not going to happen in a few weeks or even a few months, and sometimes when you don't see progress immediately, it's easy to feel frustrated and think, this is too hard, maybe I should stop. But Julia, why do you think motivation is so important when it comes to learning English?
Well, Adam, motivation is absolutely the fuel that keeps us going. Without it, it's easy to lose focus or give up altogether. And here's the thing. Motivation doesn't just come naturally. It needs to be built, strengthened, and maintained. The key to motivation is setting realistic goals and making sure those goals are something you really care about. For example, if your goal is just to learn English without any specific reason behind it, it will feel vague, and you might lose interest very quickly. But if your goal is to improve your speaking so that you can talk to people in English-speaking countries or to watch your favorite TV shows without subtitles, suddenly your goal has a real personal purpose, and that gives you motivation to keep going.
Exactly, Julia. A lot of learners forget to connect their learning with something that excites them, and this is something that can make a huge difference. So, let's break this down for our listeners. Start by thinking about why you want to learn English. Maybe you want a better job, or maybe you want to be able to speak to new people when you travel, or maybe you want to enjoy English books, movies, and songs without relying on translations. Whatever it is, once you find your why, that's what you need to hold on to when things get difficult. Because let's be real, there will be tough times in your learning journey, and that's when motivation becomes your most important tool.
Absolutely. And one thing that can really help you stay motivated is tracking your progress. Sometimes we feel like we're not improving because the change is so slow, but if you look back at what you've learned every few weeks, you'll see that you've actually come a long way. For example, maybe 3 months ago you couldn't understand a podcast, but today you can follow along and understand most of it. Or maybe you couldn't say a full sentence in English, but now you're able to express yourself clearly. These small victories matter, and when you focus on them, they give you the motivation to keep going.
Right. And here's a tip I like to share with my students. Make learning English a habit, rather than something you only do when you feel like it. A habit is something you do every day without thinking too much about it, and it's the key to long-term success. So, even on the days when you don't feel super motivated, try to do something small. Listen to an English podcast, review a few vocabulary words, or write a short diary entry in English. It doesn't have to be big, but by making English part of your daily life, you're telling your brain that it's important. And when you keep doing this, even on the tough days, the language will become a natural part of your routine, and you'll start to see the improvement you've been hoping for.
That's such a great point, Adam. And another thing I would suggest is celebrating the small wins. When you speak English, even if it's just for a few minutes, give yourself credit. Maybe you learned a new word or you said something correctly without thinking too much. Those are wins. The more you celebrate these small moments, the more your brain will associate learning with positive feelings. That's how you build motivation over time.
Exactly, Julia. So, for anyone listening right now, if you feel like you're losing motivation or thinking about giving up, I want you to think about the small steps you've already taken. Maybe last month, you couldn't understand a simple conversation, but now you can catch some words. Maybe you couldn't remember the word opportunity before, but today you used it in a sentence. These are all steps in the right direction, and the more you keep moving forward, the closer you get to fluency.
And let's not forget about patience. I know it's frustrating when you feel like you're stuck or when you think others are learning faster than you. But remember, language learning is a journey, not a race. Everyone moves at their own pace, and that's okay. What matters is consistency. Even on days when you feel stuck, as long as you're practicing a little bit, you're still moving forward. And before you know it, you'll look back and realize just how far you've come.
Yes, and I think one of the most important things to remember is that motivation can fluctuate. Some days you'll feel highly motivated, and other days you might not feel like studying at all, and that's totally normal. What matters is that you don't quit when motivation is low. Keep going even when you don't feel like it, and remind yourself of your why. On the days when motivation is low, it's okay to take small actions, like listening to an English song, repeating a sentence out loud, or reading an article in English, but don't let it stop you from continuing the journey.
Exactly. Consistency is key, and motivation is something that you can build by setting clear, achievable goals, tracking your progress, and staying connected to your reasons for learning English. And remember, it's not about perfection, it's about progress, so keep going and don't give up.